How can clinical education transform your career? Welcome to Dental Talk. I'm Dr. Gary Glassman, and today we're exploring something that could completely transform your dental career. I'm joined today by Nicola Deall, our Chief People Officer at Dentalcorp. And later, we'll be joined virtually by Dr. Marianne MacDonald, Dentalcorp's Director of Clinical Operations.
Let's start with the big picture. I thought I'd start by just sharing a little bit about Dentalcorp's philosophy around clinical learning and education and career development. And why should every dentist and team member care about this? And I'm going to start with saying that clinical education is at the core of really everything that a dental company wants to achieve. You always want to make sure that what you're delivering to patients is the absolute best quality and best possible in industry in terms of standards. You want to make sure that you have team members that are engaging and learning more and more about the profession so that they can continue to get better in their roles and provide better support to our patients. But that need to grow and self-actualize in careers, that doesn't go away. That's present in every single person. And so being able to provide opportunities for people to genuinely develop, expand their skills over a career, it's at the core of what the dental industry is about. We've always had CE requirements. We've always had a need to continually develop. It's literally mandated. The opportunity here to make clinical education a solution for everything that what we want to achieve at Dentalcorp is truly huge. And that's one of the reasons I'm deeply passionate about it and talking to you today.
And education definitely drives growth, doesn't it?
I mean, absolutely. And that growth is really what allows you to have more investment in technology, more investment in training, a healthy, thriving practice that's continuing to grow because it's got best standards, more services, happy teams. Those are practices that, we can invest in and do even more. So for me, education, absolutely, it's a growth lever. For a dentist, it's also the only way that they can really meaningfully change their ability we get promoted in corporations or in other businesses. You have to wait around and get promoted to get skills. Dentists actually have to get educated and continue to expand their clinical skill set as a way to progress in their career. So for me, this is not a nice to have. To me, this is at the absolute core of our organization's strategy, and something that I think that we're only wanting to dial up in the future.
You recently launched something pretty amazing, the new vision, Beyond Brilliant Through Frictionless Dentistry. How does this vision shape DC Institute's approach to professional development?
So Beyond Brilliant, let's just break it down, is really captures the ambition that we do excellence in everything that we do. Really, that going beyond brilliant is the expectation that we all should have to make sure that every patient, everything we're doing, every process, every piece of work, if it's worth doing really well. And so we wanted to capture that our ambition really is for excellence. The second part of that is this concept of frictionless dentistry, which is if we were able to go through and remove any friction point between any patient interaction or process or anything that we're doing, we would actually transform dentistry to be the best that it can be. And so, DCI, but I'll just say that clinical education generally, really, its entire purpose is to create excellence. It's to create practitioners that know how to do skills really well and not just sort of transference of knowledge. We're really interested in going beyond what traditional CE was to figure out how do you do learning that's hands-on, where maybe we're applying it, maybe we're doing live surgeries, we're doing lots of things that genuinely try and shift the capability so that you can go back to the team on Monday morning or Tuesday morning and say, look, I'm ready to start implementing something really new that's going to do great things and really meet more patient needs. And so for me, what DCI is doing is really delivering on the purpose, which is to create brilliant outcomes and go to a level of excellence in what we deliver every day.
And it's not just a one and done with education, with development. It's always about continued engagement, always engaging the doctor, the teams, and having them all collaborate together in order to, keep this process going.
Absolutely. We have learned, and we're not there yet, but what we have learned is that the learning pathways of dentists is a journey that we've tried to map and really articulate, what level of engagement and what needs to be true at each point of that journey so that we're not having people say, oh, this is too hard, I don't have the confidence, I might drop out. Really making sure that there's everything from study clubs, WhatsApp groups, communities of learning, people to call, hands-on live experiences, on-demand videos if I get stuck. Really what we've learned is that you need all of it. And I know that we're being visited later by Dr. Mary MacDonald, who will be able to explain that, because having someone that has literally just walked through those journeys and being able here now to inform what does that learning pathway need to look like so that it translates into actual new practices and services. That's definitely, we haven't cracked it on everything yet, but we are certainly learning a lot about what dentist education needs to look like.
Definitely moving forward in a very positive direction. So there's a common misconception that career growth in dentistry only means practice ownership. Now, how does being part of a network actually open up more career pathways rather than limiting them?
I love telling these stories. It's one of the true ways that I think that we can prove that these new pathways that have never existed in our industry today are really true. And I'll give you an example. Today, there's a dental assistant who went on and put her hand up and was curious and people-centric enough to say, I'd love to be a manager of my practice, became the manager of the practice and just continued to put the hand up. Today, they run the director of operations and they run, $100 million of revenue today in a business that's so big. And that pathway was simply someone saying, I'm really passionate about dental. I love being a dental experience, but I also want to grow. Today, our organization creates these pathways where the more clinical people and the more people that have got dental experience that can come into our leadership roles, into our clinical roles, into forming the way that we think about strategy, about practice support around clinical education programming, compliance, mentoring of dentists when they need it. We have new careers, I think, honestly, being created every day that is very exciting. And I think it's a change for the industry so that you can become a clinician for as long as it takes you to master that. And then once you have, there's just so much more you can do with it.
So when you have a partner who decides to retire and you've identified an associate in the network that could take over that, what does that look like? What's that pathway to clinical leadership within that practice?
Right. I'll just make the point that what we hear over and over is that when someone might feel like they are getting ready to retire, it doesn't mean they're ready to just stop. I think that when you get to a point where you've been in your career you're at a point of complete mastery, of never having more knowledge than at that point of retirement. And to know that you've got people that then say, I'm going to walk out the door. We have to find ways to leverage and connect them through mentorship and say, look, how do we get you making sure that you're either continuing in the practice that you're leaving to come in and create stability and for the new person that's taking that over from a leadership practice, from a leadership perspective, but also just in the network, how can we let that sort of incredible experience, wisdom of everything they've seen walk out? So I'm really passionate about making sure that we're leveraging that and finding more formal and structured ways to make sure that we're not allowing retired dentists to just walk without sharing. And I think that that's a real need at that point, is to pay it forward and pass it on. But to answer your question, we realize that path to partnership, or that way of making sure that we're proactively managing succession, is at the core. I think of it as one of our core business processes. We know that if you are an associate and you put your hand up and say, look, I feel innately like a leader, I'd like to be a leader of a practice, but I don't necessarily want to have to take the risk and outlay 30 years of building a practice up like an entrepreneur dentist needs to. Today exists this sort of path to partnership, or this opportunity to be a leader without the risk and the heavy lift, with all this support provided, so that you've got operational support. We also know that we have to lean in a couple of years before to make sure that we're providing that development. And we think about it in 4 ways. First of all, the leadership development that's required to go from an associate dentist that may have just come in and done their work and seen their patients and gone home and not played a big leadership role, to turn them into a leader takes time. So we've got a Path to Partnership leadership program, which includes a lot of things, everything from training you in what leadership looks like. We now know we've got profiles of what outstanding, people-centric, deeply humanistic leaders look like in a practice. And we go on a 2-year leadership journey, which includes assessments and coaching and workshops. And that's on the leadership pillar. We know that clinical advancement and making sure that they have the best access to really advanced disciplines across whatever is really interesting to them, and making sure that they've got the breadth of skill to make sure that if they're the lead clinician, that they can, really anyone can walk into the practice and they have the breadth and depth to be able to meet any patient need that walks in. Thirdly, we think about it as operational brilliance, which is really how do I have all the best practice tools, processes, everything to make sure that I know how to run a really well-run practice across everything from compliance and finances and HR and onboarding of dentists and all of that operational excellence. And the fourth thing we think about is financial acumen. And that is really how do I make sure that I'm running a business that's on track, and how do I make sure that if there's something off track, I know what to do about it and what levers I've got on the financials. So we think about our path to partnership in those four ways, but really the essence of it is that there is a 2-year learning journey, very much tailored to you to say this is what's really deeply interesting to me and where I'd love to lean into, where we can now structure and make sure that people are set up for success. And we're seeing real success in doing that. And I think it really comes down to having enough time, choosing the right person. And we certainly have an assessment approach to making sure we're promoting great people. But then once we do, making sure that they're really set up for success. And I think that we're, again, getting better at that every day, not finally arrived, but certainly trying a lot of things and seeing a lot of impact.
What a great experience for someone that takes this path to partnership. It's almost like an MBA in real life, in real time.
Absolutely. We wanted it actually to feel very much like you were having that sort of mini MBA experience within a dental practice, for sure.
That's great. So let's change things up a little bit. I'm going to put my headphones on because I'm very excited to welcome Dr. Marianne MacDonald, our Director of Clinical Operations and a dentist, joining us virtually. Marianne, your career journey is a perfect example of the pathways we're discussing today. Clinical education and specialization. You have transitioned from a practicing dentist to leading clinical operations as a dentist. Can you walk us through how Dentalcorp's clinical education programs in areas like orthodontics, periodontics, endodontics, which is my personal favorite, and implants are being delivered at Dentalcorp?
Yes, thanks so much for having me today. We are really reimagining how a lot of our education is moving forward. And some of the great things that we're looking at is, we're saying that with education, like you already mentioned, it's not linear. It's not take one course and now you're done. We really want to make sure that when we're doing the education, we also have that one-on-one mentorship. We have study clubs. We have hands-on training. We also really look at team activation and all those other areas of support. We all go to courses and then we come back and we're all excited. We're like, oh, hold it. Where do we order that material? Or how are we using this technology? And those are some of those areas that can really stop us from moving forward in whatever piece that we've been educated on that we really want to start implementing in our offices. So I think one of the biggest things that we're looking at is saying, okay, if we start, really offering that very large, like a big scan of all the education, like the big disciplines, and saying like, let's educate across the board. So we're really well positioned to do great diagnosis and treatment planning across everything holistically for our patients. And then as our dentists get more interested in certain areas, then they kind of almost go down a funnel where they then start doing, okay, now I would like to do more in hands-on, or now I want to do more on, I'm going to do one-on-one mentorship, or I'm going to do more live patient care. So we're really looking at it as, a holistic journey for everybody, that we're saying, okay, let's make sure we have all the bases covered when we're looking at a patient. And then as we then keep going, we have those steps assessed and validated by some really phenomenal dentists like yourself, specialists who are guiding those paths for us. So, nobody is going to be an expert at everything, but we're able to then lean in because we're so lucky. We have phenomenal people in our network that, no matter what area we're looking at, we have experts in those areas to really guide the education as well.
I've had a great experience working with you in the last year, and you putting things together in a very organized fashion has been amazing. We'll take the endo program that we're doing right now, starting with e-learns and making sure the doctors are up to date on the latest and greatest in technique and technology. And then the monthly study clubs we had and are still having, and then the intense hands-on program, 2 days program that we have, and then continuing it on. with those that are particularly interested in that particular discipline. And I know you're going to offer the same thing in all the other disciplines. So tell me, one of the things when we graduated from dentistry, we learned how to do endo, we learned how to do perio. But one of the things that we really didn't know how to do really well was to combine it and have that multidisciplinary approach to dentistry and be able to be not only great at everything, but also know when to refer to someone else within our practice or within our network. What is your philosophy with providing that multidisciplinary approach?
I think that just like you said, like we learn a little bit of everything, but we don't really get to see it in action until we're with patients. And then once we start meeting and knowing our patients, we're able to start piecing those pieces together. But then we're saying, okay, maybe I don't know enough about occlusion, or maybe I don't know enough about perio. But then the great thing is that, these courses are going to be offered. And I love what you mentioned about, everybody being able to level up. What we learned even 5 years ago. If you were doing endo 5 years ago, Invisalign 5 years ago, perio 5 years ago, everybody is leveling up because of the new technology. There's so much more out there that we really need to be able to, and we're excited about it. So one, we need to always be investing in our own education so that we can look at our patients with fresh eyes, be able to see that what's going on with that patient and put those pieces together and really, I always say like understanding the basics, there's bacterial problems, there's structural problems, and then how are we using our technology to help our patients? How are we having our teams brought along using the same, making sure our teams are educated? A lot of times, one, patients only hear a certain amount that we're saying, and then once they go in to see their hygienist, are hygienists educated to the same level of diagnosis and treatment planning, or having some of the tools that we're using and being able to speak the same language? And then once they leave the hygiene room, are they able to go out front and have some administrators? We're not necessarily going to explain the treatment planning, but that we're all using the same language and that we're able to explain the basics enough that the patient's like, okay, yes, this is important for me to go ahead and do this treatment. So those are things that I think are really important when we're looking at really treating patients comprehensively.
So we have dentists, we have hygienists, we have assistants, we have admin. In your experience, what are some of the most exciting career paths that you see all these dental professionals pursue within the network?
I love the example that Nicola gave, which is, being able to be at different levels in our dental practices and being able to help support regionally or nationally. So for sure, that's one. I also think that some of the things when we're dentists, we don't necessarily think about the leadership pieces that we can even take within our own practices and then maybe outside of our practices. So, within an office, you could be the leader of providing Invisalign care. So really, you could be the one to say, okay, I'm going to make sure my teammates or my team from hygienists to assistants to dentists, that they learn, that they understand the fundamentals of ortho. Maybe I'm going to encourage them to go to some courses, come on the journey with me. I'm going to be the person that really loves Invisalign and I'm going to be able to provide it. And then maybe even within the network, if you're, we have people in our network where there's one dentist who's helping other clinics do Invisalign, or someone saying, they're phenomenal at aesthetic bonding. So we know, okay, let's all send to that person. So being that leader of a particular area of dentistry that you're really passionate about. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I always say, being a leader in technology. We all can't be great at all the new technologies that are coming through. So if somebody in the clinic is, I always think of Dr. Amy Rahal, he's like always at the forefront of digital dentistry. And digital dentistry is ever changing. And, I always say super awesome that we have Dentalcorp to look at piloting and vetting and testing. But then, there has to be somebody in the office who's going to champion it. And sometimes it's going to be a dentist. Sometimes it's going to be a hygienist. Sometimes it's somebody else in the practice, but it's going to be somebody to be like, okay, I'm really interested in this. And I'm going to be the go-to person to really champion that. And then obviously, again, there's education. So if you really love something, you many times want to share that with others. So, you may be the person who continues to go on and then becomes that mentor or that educator. And, I do see that path with a lot of our dentists who are really fantastic, who have gone on to become KOLs or aligned speakers or Dentsply speakers and, being able to be champions for those areas as well. So, and I see that in hygiene. I mean, it just is endless. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the collaboration between the assistants, the hygienists, the doctors is so important for continued growth of the practice. I'll speak for the endo programs that we have. I used to just give it to the dentists, and they used to get really excited about all the new techniques and technology. They go back to the office all excited, and the assistants would go, "Oh, another new thing?" Now we include the assistants in our programs. We have a simultaneous assistant program. They come together during the 2 days, and they all get really excited. So when you have the buy-in from the entire team, you see that collaboration and the continued growth all the time. So let's get specific about clinical education with continued education across all those disciplines: endo, implants, restorative, Invisalign, and so much more. How do these programs translate into real career opportunities for the doctors and the assistants and the hygienists?
Well, I think education in general, like as we become more educated, you're going to have a broader skill set. And then so you can expand your skill offering. So your offerings to your patients. So as you get more proficient in something, you're now going to be confident. And then if it's been integrated into your office where you have your assistants behind you and your admin behind you and your hygienist behind you, then obviously everybody will then, we'll be able to diagnose and treatment plan it efficiently and effectively. And then that's going to then translate into an expanded skill set and more a career path that's going to obviously open up further.
How does access to cutting edge technology through the network, whether it's using AI to improve diagnostics or the latest innovations in dentistry, impact career development opportunities?
Well, with Dentalcorp, we're always, testing and piloting and vetting all of these great technologies. So it's really fantastic because we then have it at a point where we can then start using it in our clinics. So from AI with, imaging or software, or we can look at using great PMS software to do online bookings, to doing treatment planning. And then we can look at also our digital scanners and then 3D printing. I mean, it's really endless. And the most important thing is that we're at the forefront and that we're, looking at being continuously pushing the agenda of using it, because we definitely want to stay current.
This definitely is beyond brilliant through frictionless dentistry, right?
Right.
Nicola, what role does mentorship play in these career pathways, and how is it structured within the network?
I mean, I'll start with the fact that mentorship in practice every day and being able to reflect on the work that you're doing every day and have dentists that talk to each other and provide that close mentorship every day. There's nothing that can replace that. So I'll just say that I believe that all of us, whether you're an associate or not, we all have an obligation to be paying it forward as a mentor and having a mentor. And I think that accumulation of best practice and just wisdom in our careers is essential. We know from every bit of data that mentorship translates to capability shifts, mindset shifts, confidence shifts in a highly effective way. The challenge is, how do you at scale, or how do you get mentorship in learning sometimes really complex, difficult, intricate procedures in dentistry at scale? How do you do that? I'll say that what we've learned is that mentorship makes the biggest impact when people have done the work to get through a learning journey and build enough knowledge, enough skill. They know the basics to then say, and now I'm stuck. And now I want to go in. And the mentorship, when it's really timely and when it's related to a specific case or something that I'm actually a little bit stuck with, is an amazing unlock. So what we know is that the role of mentorship, and I do just want to say again, I really believe that it's a responsibility of all of us to be mentoring within practices just all the time. But really what we see in clinical ed is that when you've been through and you've done, you've watched the video and you've got the theory, going back and then getting stuck when you're back at a practice and going, oh, I don't know if I feel confident to do this by myself. That's mentorship kicks in a really effective way there. And I think that for us, we're trying to figure out how do you at scale make that available really easily, because that's where we really see the difference of someone that sort of leaves a course really enthused and then doesn't actually apply it versus someone that says, okay, I know I've got the support if I need it. Have we got a long way to go to make sure that everyone in our network is both a mentor to someone and has a mentor? Absolutely. But we're definitely wanting to structure it.
Yeah, we need to identify the mentors. We need to see the willingness of them. And we have so much talent in our network. and so many that can provide that position to be a good mentor to those that do get stuck, that need that either immediate feedback or feedback at the end of the day, or even weekly or monthly. So I think that's
Feedback is the breakfast of champions.
100%. So let's talk about an exciting trend and an area of personal passion for both of you. The Canadian Dental Association reports that by 2030, we'll achieve gender parity in dentistry, with women currently representing around 40% of dentists as of 2021. So how are you seeing this impact, and what specific support does the network provide for women advancing their careers?
Oh, big question.
Let's start with you, Nicola.
I mean, the fact is that dentistry is an amazing career for women. We're seeing that reflected in them being the predominant gender graduating from dental schools across the country and in fact globally. It's a wonderful profession for women. I will just say that it changes a little bit some of the dynamics. We're definitely seeing people that are more selective about, how many days they want to work, how many hours they want to work. And dentistry allows for that in a way that's slightly easier than other professions. So I think it's wonderful. I will just share that there's an organization called Women in DSO. It's a US-based organization that has got a Canadian chapter, and we were the first Canadian founding partners of that organization. And it's certainly something we're proud of, because women have got slightly more unique development needs. That there's often you're talking about things like, what do you do to really make sure that you're not letting beliefs about, oh, look, I don't want to apply for that job, or I don't want to go for it unless I'm 100% qualified for something. That there are unique topics that exist within women in leadership that we're actually being able to offer our women dentists access to today through that membership. That I'm really proud of, because I think that there is women absolutely want to belong to community. They are really supported by other women networks, and so it's something we're really proud of, but I think it's important.
Marianne?
I would just echo everything Nicola said, is that one, dentistry does afford such great opportunities for women, because a lot of things can be set in terms of hours, how you practice, when you learn, how you grow. It really you can do those things. I would say for sure, I've done it for myself. Definitely, it was a great career for myself, having 2 children. And then I would also say being part of women in dentistry. Was able to go to the first event that we had in Toronto. And I think that event alone helped me really open my eyes to some of the areas where I was maybe easily very unaware of how women do sometimes show up, or we all do show up. And so I think that being part of it is definitely going to be a great experience for all of us, and also an opportunity for all of us.
For dental professionals listening who are intrigued by these possibilities, what's the first step to exploring all these career pathways?
I think Marianne should answer this. I'm going to say something generic because she's walked this, but really I'm going to say follow what you deeply love and passionate about, because you will ultimately spend the time becoming a master at it. You'll become better at it. So I will always say, figure out what you love. Figure out which bits of dentistry you look forward to when you see it in the schedule, and which bits you say, oh, I don't look forward to that one. And just follow it. Follow the bits. Follow your curiosity, because that really is what you're going to get behind and become, fantastic at.
Marianne, this is your story. You started, in the beginning, and now you're here. Can you tell us the pathways that you've gone through that others can follow?
I think in terms of just really being open to learning as much as you can and when you can, but also I think the biggest piece that I always say is be a leader. So whether you are a leader with your, if you are an associate dentist and you're going to be a leader with your own immediate assistant and your hygienist and your patients, that in itself is such a huge responsibility and accountability. And we all have to say we're leaders as dentists in all aspects, like all the time. And depending on where you then have your other passion, whether you're going to be the leader in your clinic about protocols and processes, that's probably the area that I leaned into the most when I was in practicing chairside, was, the love of having really strong processes and protocols that I then shared with my whole clinic. To this day, I have lots of hygienists and dentists who will say they love them. I'm not sure if they always love it when I implement them, but in the end, they always love them. So, find out what you are passionate about and then be that leader in that area.
And I would say have high expectations because, we all actually are deeply nourished or we're deeply fulfilled when you climb a mountain, when you learn a new skill, when you push yourself. I think don't settle. Go out and do the course. Go out and explore an area of dentistry that you might be really interested but scares you. Just go out and do it and have really high expectations of yourself and your career because you just want to get to the end and just not have left anything on the table. So I think just go and have a really ambitious career conversation with yourself and ring someone up and have a call and just be challenged. Get someone to say what's possible if you can't see it and just have a really high expectation of what you can do.
Okay, I think you hit the nail on the head. Going out of your own comfort zone is so important in order to expand your own growth, personal and professional. And it's incredible when you do that and it's successful, you reap the benefits. And when it's not, you know what didn't work and you know how to improve on it the next time. So I think it's a great experience, great advice. Nicola and Marianne, thank you for pulling back the curtain on what modern dental career development really looks like. Nicola, your passion for lifelong learning and insights on how DC Institute approaches professional growth have been really eye-opening. So thank you. And Marianne, your journey from practicing dentist to director of clinical operations perfectly demonstrates these possibilities in action. And what we've heard today challenges the assumption that dental professionals must go it alone. Networks like Dentalcorp create opportunities combining clinical autonomy with unprecedented support from DC Institute specialized training to leadership, development, leveraging Canada's largest network of dental practices. For dental professionals listening today, the question isn't whether you can have both clinical excellence and career growth. It's how quickly you're ready to access these possibilities. Join us on Dental Talk as we continue exploring the innovations and opportunities that help dental professionals thrive in today's evolving industry. Until next time.